Hey, welcome to another Notes from the Judges. My name's Lavelda Vincenzi. I'm one of the co-founders of the Speaker Awards. And this here is an interview with one of our esteemed judges of the Speaker Awards 2025, providing some feedback and insight as to how the applications fared, what was the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you can learn for your application either this year or as feedback for future applications. I think I might have said that the wrong way around, but you know what I mean. Today we've got joining us Deenita Pattni. Hey Deenita.
Hello, Lavelta. How are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. One of the things people might not know about you is you've been judging the Speaker Awards since its inception. So we are 4 years in, and every year for those 4 years, you have been a judge across a variety of different categories. But it does give you it does mean that you have a view of how the applications have transformed over the years, but you've also seen a lot of applications to these awards. So for people who've never met you before, can you tell us a little bit about you and also remind us of the categories that you were judging?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So, as you said, my name's Deenita. I am an award-winning international speaker. Been speaking for about 20 years. I know I don't look that old, but I've been speaking for about 20 years. And also the last sort of 15 years have been coaching speakers as well. So that's what I do. But along with training, etc. So that's what I do. And this year, the categories that I judged, very exciting, was newcomer. I love newcomer. And like you said, Lavelda, I've been doing this for 4 years now. I've been there right from the start, which I've loved. And TEDx. So as a personal TEDx speaker myself, I really enjoyed doing the TEDx this year as well. That was my first time doing TEDx. Yeah, so I think for me specifically, it's when you're a speaker, you want to know how the audience are taking you in. So for me, I put myself as if I'm an audience member in that when I'm judging. I'm the audience. I'm gonna put myself in the shoes of whoever your audience must be. And we get that obviously from the topic and then things like that when we watch the clip. So I always put myself into their audience's shoes, and then I want to see if I'm moved, if I'm touched, if I'm on the edge of my seat, if I'm interested. And I think there is a number of techniques that all speakers use, but it's about whether they use them in the right way to get me into their speech and be with them on the journey. Because speaking is a journey. That's what you're doing, aren't you? You're taking your audience on a journey with you. Whether it's a corporate speech or whether it's something more heartfelt, you're still taking them on a journey. So for me, I really look for, am I feeling it? And is it making sense? Like, can I go away and go, right, that made sense to me? So those are kind of the broad brushstrokes that I look for by putting myself into their audience.
I'm going to ask you a question that wasn't on this list because we have a lot of people who are applying for the awards, and one of the questions that we get a lot is, do I need professional video footage? And I know you've been on the newcomer category. You've judged that category a number of different times. For you, does it make a difference the quality of the footage, whether it's whizzy bang with all of the different darting in and out, or are you not bothered by it?
As especially for newcomer, no, I'm not bothered by it. I mean, if it's a really bad, like you can just about hear them or anything like that, that's different. But I'm not bothered as long as what they are saying, because it's what they say and how they make you feel with what they say is what's important. Is the message landing? So when there's technical issues like that with with sound or whatever, it's for me, it's not the worst thing, because there are some newcomers who might be doing their first speech in their living room, for example, and recording it there because they haven't had a chance to get a recording from somewhere they might have done it. And I know, Lavelda, I love it when you speak at the summits, because I always learn about how you should be able to get some footage. So but newcomers might not know that yet, right? So it doesn't bother me at all. It's really about the message and their own tonality and how they are delivering that message, because those are the nuances that we have to look at and go, am I hooked? Because you've got the right tonality, you've got the right eye contact, you are all of those things. That's what I look for.
It's really useful to hear, because I think I've been saying for a while the judges aren't looking at the video. It needs to tick the minimum criteria. We need to be able to see you, so don't film it in the dark.
Yeah,
You know, it's quite difficult to judge your delivery when I can't see you speak, right?
yeah,
That's an audio file then at that point.
yeah,
And I need to be able to hear you clearly. So
yeah.
if the audio is so bad, I'm really struggling, it's going to detract from the ability to be able to actually evaluate. But outside of that, does it need to be beautifully edited? What I'm hearing from you is, at least for you, absolutely not. It's not something that you're judging it on.
100%.
Fab. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the stuff that really stood out to you. 4 years of judging the awards. I mean, you must have seen at least over 100 applications by now, because the newcomer category can be a chunky category. So over the 4 years across multiple categories, I'd have to go back and check, but I could probably say you've seen at least over 100 applications. What is something, if you could give us on your notes, what works when people get it right? What are the traits of applications that really work?
So first of all, yes, the newcomer is probably one of the most, I mean, you'll be able to obviously reveal this, but it is such a competitive category and there are lots of videos. So yeah, well, I mean, I'd say 200 probably that I'm close to. So, so from all the ones that we saw, the ones that the common kind of characteristics and traits and techniques that worked really well for me are a number of things. So one is their tonality, their projection of their voice, but not just projection as in, is it loud, but is it varied? You know, when whether you're telling a story or whether you are sharing facts and figures, you know, because it might be much more of a corporate educational led video or content, are you still taking us on that journey? And I know I mentioned journey before, but your tonality is what you've got. That's the way that you want to be able to take them through, you know, how you're feeling and also relate to that audience. So tonality is big, because if you become monotonous, and it doesn't matter whether you're monotonous at a loud side of things or whether you're monotonous because you're really quiet, if you're just in one tone, you know, it's not going to keep my attention. And one of my mentors had said to me, think about your tonality like a heartbeat monitor. If the heartbeat monitor is flat, that only means one thing, right? So what you don't want to do is be putting your audience in that state, because your tonality can move people's state. So for me, the good ones were the ones where they projected their voice, they used different tonality. There was rhetorical questions, which, you know, got the audience sort of into the story. So that was the first thing. The second trait that came along out of the ones that scored high was also interaction with the audience. Now, whether that's through rhetorical questions that gets the audience thinking in their own mind, but a rhetorical question, what that does is that allows the audience to go, oh, he's just answered or she's just answered my question. So rhetorical questions are really good, but also just, you know, a yes or no, a hand raise to just check in with that audience. And those were the ones that scored high. And my third really good trait from all of the ones was stories. Being able to tell a story to either back up evidence or story sell, right? So being able to hook them in with a story, and that hook is really important. Like when you start your story, start it with something that's really attention grabbing. Like don't just go, oh, let me tell you a story and then go into a narrative. Really let them live that story, relive that story through your words rather than you just tell that story. So the speakers that did really well, who actually relived this, allowed the audience to relive that story through dialogue, through, you know, really getting us like being descriptive, so we felt like we were there in the story with them. So those were my kind of three big ones.
I love the distinction between narrative and storytelling, because I think it's really easy to tell a narrative and think you're telling the story, because you've hit all the points, right? This is the beginning, this is what happened at the beginning, and then this happened, that happened, the other thing happened, but it doesn't have that same richness and flavor that you'd get, and it's not as emotive as if you kind of combine tonality with color and a variety of different storytelling techniques. I think the other thing I'm finding really interesting in what you're saying is, especially for something like newcomer, we don't think of storyteller. I think, we have a number of different categories, and often I can see it being very easy for an applicant to think, well, this isn't the storytelling category, so I don't need to worry about that bit.
Yeah.
So that selection of the 5 minutes that you put forward, what you're saying is, if that selection included a story, rather than it simply being educational in of its own right, that seemed to captured your attention more, and floated it more to the top of the pile.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a long story. Like I said, it could still be in the educational part, but it's just a story to maybe back, or a metaphor to back up a bit of factual information. Because when if your topic is something that everybody is not familiar with, you need to relate something that they can associate with something that they can't associate with.
Yeah.
So, if they're talking about, I don't know, accountancy or something like that, let bring it back to something that they can relate to by using a metaphor, an anecdote, or a story. And it literally can be something very short, but it will just allow me to go, oh yeah, I like the way that they did that, or I like the way that they've made it make sense for the audience.
Make it make sense for the audience. So we talked about what works really, really well. 200 plus applications later, I'm sure you've seen some where they've missed the mark. When an applicant has completely missed the mark, what are some things that you kind of want to advise people? Just be really cautious of it. These are common pitfalls we see very often, and when we see them as judges, it doesn't tend to work in your favor.
Yeah. I'm going to give a big overview first, and that is so the biggest bit that I always think about is, what 5 minutes am I going to be watching of your speech? Because I think one big mistake, and this is over the years that I've seen this actually, is people don't always think about the 5 minutes that they are putting forward. Now, the great thing about the TEDx talk is you can go and find that TEDx talk and watch the rest of it if you need to, you know, make it make sense for yourself as a judge. But with others, you don't. So the 5 minutes that you are putting forward, please make sure that it is the best 5 minutes of your speech, because you've only got that 5 minutes for them to watch. So that's the first thing. I found that sometimes the 5 minutes that some of the applicants had put forward, like I was just like, oh, come on, please. Which then made me assume that the rest of their speech would be like that as well,
Mm.
because there's not going to be anything that, gets better or improves, because that's all I've got to go on. Right. So I think initially, as a big picture, make sure that the 5 minutes that you're submitting is the right 5 minutes. And look at that as in, it's a bit like a job interview, isn't it? You've got 7 seconds to impress the person that you're going to be interviewed by. It's the same thing with something like this. You've got a small amount of time to impress us, so catch us right from the beginning. The other things, obviously opposite to what was good, some of it was tonality. People's tonality was very dry, very monotonous. And you've always got to think, when you've got an audience in front of you, some of them will be, they're more fast paced, they're more, they like somebody who's fast paced on stage, they need that interaction and that loudness. Some people do prefer a more quiet tonality, and other people they prefer the more factual, tonality. If you're just in one of those, you're leaving 2/3 of your audience out, because they're suddenly lost, they don't feel engaged anymore. So always vary that tonality, because for me, that was the bit that would lose me as a
Yeah.
judge. I'd go, okay, I'm done. Like, how much more of this? How many more of these minutes do I have to watch? And so I think just understanding that as a speaker, you have to excel your tonality more than you normally would. So, and think about conversation. If you and I are having a conversation, Avelda, I'm not thinking in my head, oh God, I need to be more visual or more high paced, or, uh, you know, because our conversation and our emotional state will lead our tonality naturally. So my one tip there for tonality would be, when you get on stage, think about having a conversation with your audience. That's what it is. Yes, they might not be replying and putting their own thoughts forward, but if you speak in a conversational style, you'll come across more natural. And then the third key thing was audience interaction. If you didn't kind of get any sort of audience interaction, we couldn't see whether the audience were engaged, whether they, and so for me, I go, oh, a bit of like I said, a rhetorical question, or raise your hand or whatever. I think it's really important, because nowadays, as a speaker, you want to make sure that the audience feel part of your speech. So for me, those were the ones where I knocked people down. And then, sorry, there's one more. Stage. Think about your stage presence. Like, think about your hand movements. Make them purposeful. Make them count, rather than just stand, very loggish style almost, and not do anything. Even if you've got a hand mic, you can still do the relevant hand movements or stage movements. So yeah.
So it's a full sort of total package. And the one thing that's screaming out from what you've been sharing so far is the power of tonality in the way that we deliver. And if that's an area as a speaker, I mean, I'd encourage people listening to this, if you're thinking of applying, when you listen to your talk, to go back and almost listen to it with your eyes closed. Are there peaks and troughs, or does it feel like I'm sat at the back of a lecture hall with somebody who's giving me all the information, but at any moment it's really good to snooze to, and we don't want our audience snoozing.
Exactly. You don't want to put them to sleep.
We don't want to put them to sleep. That's not the purpose of the exercise.
Yeah.
Over the years, 4 years into these awards, and the application, the standard has gotten higher. It's become closer and closer and closer. And so we're now operating in the space of margins for a number of these applicants. What would you say to an applicant who applied, did their best work, and just wasn't shortlisted? What were you seeing with some of those little things that were, because it's so close, what sorts of things were on knife edges that you'd say, here's maybe some piece or opportunity for improvement going forward?
So I first want to say, just following on from what you just said there, Lavelda, is the competition was so tough. So and I've seen this grow over the years, like like you said, the amount of entries we have, but also the quality of the entries as well. It was in some cases, as a judging panel, there were literally points in between, those who did get shortlisted, those who didn't. And so I want to first of all say, look, if you entered, well done, because that's the first step, getting out there as a speaker. Through my 20 years as a speaker, I have heard so many people talk about why they don't get enough gigs and they don't get enough offers to speak, but they're not putting themselves out there. Every single applicant who has gone through the Speaker Awards, well done. I want to give that kudos, because it's not easy. So yeah, the competition was really, really tough. So if you did miss out, please do not be disheartened and come back. We have had applicants, haven't we, that have come back the following year. So please do not give up, and keep going, because if you'd seen me as a speaker when I first started, I think I sounded very robotic. And I tried to be perfect at everything. And I remember my mentor at that point saying to me, like, first of all, he was like, who the hell are you? Like, what is this video? And then he said, you've got to learn to be passionate, not perfect. So yeah, so I just want to say that, because we had some great videos. And in terms of near misses, I think going back to what I was saying earlier about, some people would have been really good, but the 5 minutes that they put forward just didn't hit the mark. And if there was another additional bit where it really brought it together, that might have been the difference between being shortlisted and being not. And then the second thing is attention grabbing. So remember, when you start off your speech, what's the first 10, 20, 30 seconds like? Is it grabbing my attention? And if it didn't grab a judge's attention straight away, you lose that, especially when we're watching 60, 70, 80, 100 plus videos. So make sure that you are grabbing that attention in that first 30 seconds to a minute, because then and it makes sense. And then I'm like, oh, I know what this is about. I know where, I'm interested. I want to know more. With the TEDx, actually, it was really interesting, because I want to just specifically talk about TEDx is, what for me personally, and this is more of a personal thing, one of the things that got me was, you've got the red carpet, right? And you're not supposed to wave off that. So I think with TEDx, the near misses really did come down to how they started their TEDx speech, because if it grabbed my attention at the beginning, then I wanted to listen, because they don't have the option of moving around the stage and being a bit more engaging from that point of view. But if you sounded engaging, going back to tonality, and you grabbed my attention with the TEDx and the idea, like I knew what the idea was, then that had me. And that's what worked with TEDx as well. So for me, grabbing attention, that 5 minutes that you submit is going to be really important. And also making sure that the video fits what you are submitting. So that we had some newcomer videos which were show reels and not a 5 minute presentation. And in the show reel, you can kind of go, this person is a really good speaker. I can tell, but it's not the right category. So make sure you're putting it through the right category.
I guess it's, you've got different things that you're judging, and there's not enough meat on the bones of some of the show reels to be able to assess the speaking I guess it depends on what the nature of the show reel is, but that selection of what is the video that you're putting in and how does it open is what I'm really taking away from this. Not just the selection, but how is that, what's the first words that come out of my mouth, and is somebody going to lean in and go, oh, interesting, I want to hear a little bit more? Or are they going to go, oh, here we go again? Because it is a lot, a lot of a lot of applications that you're watching one after the other. Final question for you, quick one. If you could shout, if you could climb up to the top of a mountaintop and shout just one bit of, like, I wish the people would do more of this, or I wish they do this better, what would that be? If there was just one thing, I think I know what it might be.
Yeah, I think you're right in knowing what it might be. It is vary your tonality, like really have a conversation with your audience. Don't feel like, in fact, the words I'm going to use is what I was told, and that is, be passionate, not perfect, because then you will really relate. So be passionate, not perfect. That would be what I would be shouting off the top of that mountain.
So pick the clip that's passionate, not perfect. Work on the tonality. I mean, if you applied this year, you're looking to apply in future years, really think about that clip selection, think about how it opens. Is it attention grabbing? And look at the tonality. Is it monotone or is it not? And for some people, it comes quite natural to have the peaks and troughs. And for others, it does come natural until you get on a stage, and it's something that you've got to work on. So that might be something where
oh, sorry, Lavelda, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's fine. Go on.
That's where that passionate versus perfection comes in, because the minute that they become a bit more robotic and a bit more monotonous is when they feel like they have to remember all the words that they're trying to speak. So yeah, absolutely. Well, exactly what you said. Be passionate, be yourself, and honestly, the tonality will come naturally.
Fantastic. Deenita, thank you so much for taking the time to share golden nuggets, notes from a judge's notebook from the Speaker Awards. If you're looking to apply to the Speaker Awards in 2026 or any years beyond that, go to thespeakerawards.com. You'll be able to find all information about the awards on that website. If you've got any questions about the awards, or you would like to speak to us, then please do get in touch. Until next year and next time, all the best with your applications. Congratulations again to everybody who applied in 2025, and we'll see you next year. Take care. Bye.